ATOR, welcome to Real Talk.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us, Dean.
So let's start with the why behind ATOR. What problem are you solving and what led you to start ATOR?
I think what happened with ATOR was we saw a mega need in the world for human rights with privacy in regards to our internet usage. It became more increasingly clear during COVID times when everyone was at home that our rights were being tested and infringed upon. And although some of these have come back and we're going outdoors and no longer have to wear masks and all these restrictions, some have got swept under the rug, such as our internet usage is constantly being spied upon. And it's extended just beyond even our phones. Now they're putting in Alexa devices. They're putting in devices in your fridge. So now everything that you're doing is being watched, spied upon, without you even knowing. And kind of at this point, roughly with our consent. So we wanted to make something that was easy to use to allow basic freedoms to come back. Just as you go to your house, you would lock the door. The same should apply to your internet usage. And what's interesting about this versus most crypto concepts is it's very easy to understand. Even if you explain to your grandma, hey, remember grandma, you were talking to your friend and she said her grandson got Monster Energy drink, and all of a sudden the next day you're on Facebook and you're getting ads for Monster Energy drink even though you've never had that in your entire life. That's something they can understand. The next big LP pool or next big leverage hyperliquid protocol, that's not something a normal person can understand. But protecting their privacy, protecting their internet usage, and a beautiful, sleek, chic device that they can put in their house that will do the job for them with a quick installation process and earn them passive income at the same time is a home run equation. So that's what we set out to do, and we're very excited to bring the mission mainstream. It became more increasingly clear during COVID times when everyone was at home that our rights were being tested and infringed upon. And although some of these have come back and we're going outdoors and no longer have to wear masks and all these restrictions, some have got swept under the rug, such as...
So Tor already exists, right? Why do you need a Web3 element to start this?
That's a great question. I think the answer is twofold. The first thing is sheerly on the point of numbers. Obviously, we have great respect for the Tor project and the Tor network. It has been successful in some sense over the past 20 years in upholding itself and being available for public usage. But looking solely at the numbers, at the number of relays, for example, that actually support the Tor network. And for those of you who are less aware, the relays are these servers that route people's traffic and encrypt it over multiple hops. So you need a lot of relays for a lot of traffic to make sure that it's not possible to de-anonymize a user. The number of relays in the Tor network has been pretty much static at the 6,000 to 8,000 mark for over a decade. There's clearly an element sort of missing here. There's a growth that's needed. There's a need for more speed and more relays. And, we felt that there is much further this concept can go. And Web3 and cryptocurrency in specific is such a good product market fit here. We're not just taking an existing problem and applying cryptocurrency for it. Crypto is genuinely the only scalable and feasible way to actually solve this problem and incentivize node runners all around the world. There's no other common language. So the fit was there. There's clearly a need for it. So that was one big, strong reason. And the second one, we can talk about it later, is to have a solution that people can really trust. It needs to be decentralized. Otherwise, there is a centralized component, be it with a VPN, it's literally a centralized server. But even in the case of Tor, there is a sort of centralized governance system. The relays available and bandwidth allocated goes through a single organization. And we have a thesis that a decentralized solution is more trustworthy and more scalable. So for those two reasons, I think there's a real need for what we're doing.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're talking about is really an incentive question, right? So the Tor nodes have stayed static over years, and anyone who has used Tor knows it's super slow. It's practically unusable for most internet usage. And so what you're doing is you're including a crypto incentive to bootstrap the network, basically programming incentives into the nodes themselves in order to bootstrap them. So I know you have a kind of an added element, an SDK that you're building. Can you talk about that and what the vision is for that?
Definitely. So yes, we're using this onion routing technology in our own network, similar to Tor. But unlike these existing sort of decentralized VPN solutions, we want to go a lot further to achieve mainstream adoption. What we don't want to do is introduce a new browser or force users to change their behavior to get onto the network. To really get this network to be adopted by the mainstream internet user, it needs to be practically invisible for them. Ideally, they don't need to do anything or change any of their own behaviors to get on the network and get just a little bit more private. And so the way we thought to do that in a sort of universal way is actually by focusing on developers. Our SDK is really just a toolkit for developers to route the traffic in existing applications through the ATOR network. So by focusing on developers, obviously developers, people who make projects, people who make browsers, services, clients, programs, they know what their customers want. That's what they do best. If we give them the tools to add seamless privacy, suddenly any use case you can think of can onboard to the network. It doesn't go through the team. It's not bottlenecked. If we make the toolkit generalized enough, that's the best way to get mainstream adoption.
So what do you say to people that say that Tor and this sort of technology is just used to cover up nefarious activity?
I would say that I can't really speak for all the native Tor users, but I will say that the VPN industry is a $100 billion industry, and that is not simply for nefarious activity. I think more and more people are understanding that even the EU has made it cookies have to ask if they want to track you, that these things are happening. You can search for a flight on your phone. The next day, you search for the same exact flight. The price is now 2 times higher. So there's a lot of things that you are now doing that they are just taking advantage of you because they know what you're doing. Even so far as computer screens, I, for one, think they're tracking where your eyes are looking on the screen, where your mouse is hovering. All this information is going towards them, and they're getting this data profile on you that you don't even know about yourself. They're learning more about you and your habits than you even want to know about yourself, and it's up to us at ATOR and just humans in general to take a stand against that. And I think it's something very powerful and something that if we don't start to change now, we're going to live in one of these dystopian futures that we've been warned about in science fiction novels. And, you know, we are aware of the problems. Now it's up to us to make a positive change to change that.
Yeah, we know with the Snowden leaks, Prism, XKey Store, the degree of the invasion in our privacy. So I really respect what you guys are doing. Can you talk a little bit more about your plan for the token, how the token model works?
Sure, that's a good question. Obviously, on the face of it, the token is the source of rewards or incentive for people running the nodes in the network. Currently, to bootstrap the network and get things started, we have this base pool, approximately 10% of supply. That leads initially to a sort of inflation rate or increase in the circulating supply of just 3% a year, but that provides enough of an incentive to get the first tens of thousands of nodes on the network and get things started. Obviously, the token is sort of the reward token. There are a few mechanisms around that. You'll have to, if you're not running an ATOR relay hardware, for example, you'll have to lock ATOR for 6 months to onboard, let's say, your own VM or your own personal computer. This is primarily, I think, to stop these sort of Sybil attacks where a malicious party can just spin up tons of nodes, and even if you try and shut down malicious nodes through governance, they can just spin up more. So having this locked token requirement sort of puts a cap on that sort of manipulation. From there, definitely the token is ultimately the lifeblood of the network. It's used in its management. So as we move over the next few quarters, we'll be decentralizing the actual control over which relays are in the network, rather than, for example, in Tor, having a single organization maintaining this list of available relays and allocating these bandwidth scores, which is the basis of rewards. This is a perfect fit for a token-based consensus mechanism where you stake tokens, either as a sort of validator taking measurements or as a holder to delegate your stake to one of these validators. And in doing so, that's how we get the finalized list and management of the network. So those are the two sort of uses for the token off the bat. Going forward, especially as we scale the network, go into higher bandwidth, enterprise use cases, we want to build an entire ecosystem of really peer-to-peer payments where you can use the token to get more bandwidth, acquire dedicated servers. You can choose your balance between sort of complete anonymity, more hops, versus having high bandwidth nodes, and paying tokens will become one of the mechanisms in that ecosystem. So certainly as we go forward, we hope it'll be a little more circulatory, a little bit more of an ecosystem. And certainly governance also doesn't stop at relay management. The use cases will only continue to proliferate for the token within the network.
Nice, thank you for that. So DMB.
Hello.
ATOR has, I would say, an epic community, largely thanks to your work. Talk about the ATOR community and how you've gotten such a dedicated base of followers.
Yeah, I mean, thank you firstly for having me. The ATOR community is just one of the best in the game. I think just, retail got wrecked in a ruthless bear market, and then it became pretty obvious to many people that VCs just get in so cheap. Retail really has an unfair advantage, and you just get dumped upon. Bear markets are sort of like, it reveals everything, and ATOR was a stealth launch and a fair launch, and retail really just were able to get a fair opportunity, which is what, for me, Web3 was meant to be about, and they were able to just... People were able to purchase it. The utility makes sense. The team's actually legit, focused, professional. Doesn't take a cowboy approach, which we've seen in many projects in Web3. So the community just went with it and ran with it. That's such an exciting thing, making memes, like calling out like people stealing and spying on our data. It's such a sexy shill. And the level of professionalism within DePIN and just those kind of communities, it's a different ball game, and the cause is just so many people resonate with it for multiple reasons, and we just went with it and ran with it. And as a community guy, I can discuss price. It was the best performing asset of the bear market, so it was just, everyone was just so grateful to have like such a great team building this, such a crazy mad community. And like, I have been involved in many communities, and I give feedback to the team, and they think they're gods or they're narcissists. You don't have that here. They're like, they listen to the community. So if you take your community for granted, you just deserve to get wrecked. That's my opinion.
Tell me, when you built this community, I'm sure you've had a lot of incentives for people to join in.
Yeah.
And if you're not in Web3 already, or if you're not trying to follow your Twitter, then what's the easiest and most effective way for somebody to come in? I asked this question because earlier you mentioned that privacy is something that's easy to understand. And certainly my grandma has had the experience of wearing masks when she did not want to. And she's also seen some weird ads.
Yeah.
And so, I wonder, for my grandma, right, who's not on Twitter, who doesn't care about Web3, what's the easiest and most effective way for them to come in?
It's a very good question. And I think, and that's sort of the challenge. Well, not the challenge, the opportunity here, because, it's a really good point. ATOR at the minute really has that really good exposure in Web3, but we really want mass adoption here, and mass adoption will really come about by incorporating Web2 people itself. So it shouldn't just be crypto native only. Really got to mass produce that. I think the product will help with that because it's simplifying complex technical solutions. And as the network is fast, it's not an inconvenience. People don't use two-factor authentication because it's annoying. People don't use they didn't use Tor because it's slow. But if you make it fast and make it inconvenient, that is going to drive the mass adoption. Then, to bring it back to your question, your grandma and stuff, it will just naturally get that exposure in traditional news outlets and this and that. Actually, we're getting a lot of attention from traditional tech companies. So I'm not dropping any alpha. But, your grandma is going to be buying an ATOR node soon. I'm going to hand deliver.
I might hand deliver. Honestly, I think perhaps mass adoption happens when you get people who like you to share your stuff. And I can totally see, just as I would buy a router for my grandma, or help them buy phones or whatever else they need, I could also try and help them have more privacy or earn passive income. And that point is very interesting to me because I am not very philosophical in my day-to-day life. So I care about how Web3 affects me now in my house. I don't really care about the other stuff. Meaning to me, DePIN is kind of an opportunity for all of us to take our physical networks, we all have cars, homes, whatever, and to monetize it or to share it with others, effectively participating in a global good.
Yes.
So in that sense, for the end user, the last mile user, what are the personal incentives that should really motivate them?
I think you've named them exactly. I'll talk about the hardware because I think if we talk about mainstream adoption, non-Web3 natives, I can't think of anything more compelling than walking into your friend's or neighbor's house and seeing a box, I'd like to say quite a beautiful piece of hardware, glowing blue. You're naturally going to ask, what does this do? How can this help me? So to answer that question they may ask, I think, as you said, the rewards are practically immediate. Once we have the router functionality already working in test and will be rolled out to all devices, including the ones we've handed out yesterday at Denver, the router functionality creates a more private Wi-Fi signal in your house that piggybacks off your existing router and Wi-Fi. It's a natural add-on. If people are convinced enough to care, and VPN adoption over the past 10 years shows that more and more people are caring. If they care and we make it easy for them, that's a win off the bat. You get this device, you're immediately a little bit more private. The passive income or rewards aspect obviously takes a little bit longer to build up, but I think it's immediately appealing. I think people love the idea of mining crypto. Even people who aren't too involved in crypto always seem to be interested in mining, and far too much crypto mining is completely inaccessible now to the average user. Here you're contributing your bandwidth. It's not a race to the bottom with GPUs or compute power or electricity. Everyone can contribute. Indeed, the more distinct and diverse the pool of people contributing, the better, and we want to incentivize that. So two things off the bat.
Yeah.
I want to turn the conversation more to you guys, actually, and without doxing anybody or talking too much about your privacy, I would love to hear about your team culture and how much fun you guys are having as well, how you brought together people who authentically align with you and care about what you're doing. This is really hard in crypto. I mean, it's a noisy space. So I admire the work you've done, and I wonder, behind your closed doors, in your offices and at home, how are you guys?
I love this question. We are a remote team, which means opportunities to meet and be physically together are a little far and few between. This was our largest turnout as a team in person in one place. We had just under 10 people here, and it's been honestly magical. We are a team of very strong personalities, interesting people. It's the same sort of interesting. Definitely, I can see people chuckling in the background. Interesting is indeed the word, but I think that makes us a very strong team. I mean, we had a lot of fun together just meeting up because of our natural personalities, but it's those same personalities that I think allow us to do so many things in parallel, because to have this many people in one team who genuinely take ownership over what they do, I don't just mean in terms of the late nights that making sure things are timed, schedule, testing, flying out to wherever is needed to get components or source things. We have multiple people who have that level of initiative, and so really I'm just filled with admiration every day at what this team is doing, and hopefully we're doing a good job at conveying the sheer number of things going on at once. Our community, of course, are fantastic, very receptive to the transparency we have. But really, it's almost as if there's too much to share with the number of distinct things going on and initiative within the team. And hopefully that'll all kind of come together as we develop this network and put out a finalized product.
Yeah, and to add to that, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best engineers in the world before being a full-time DJing. And it's very rare when you work with people that every day you're impressed by the level of expertise or commitments or drive by people you're interacting with. See that every day at ATOR. It's really a privilege and a pleasure to get visibility, be allowed to represent the community, and seeing that every day. I also think the team is decentralized and diverse, and I think diversity is a really good thing, especially when you're sort of working on a product, because the target market is diverse. We want everyone to buy this device. So if your core team and community is diverse and opinions get heard, that maximizes your chances of making a product that will go parabolic. So that's what we want. We want to cater to everyone. We don't care where you're from, anything like that. No one cares. Everyone's equal. Everyone's voice matters, and that's the way it should be in crypto, and just in general life. So that's the sort of values that we live and breathe every day.
Nicely said. We're so excited to have you guys in
Thanks.
DePINsurf Cohort 1 and in the IoTeX ecosystem. So I'd love to hear what you guys are hoping to get out of the program, how you're hoping to integrate with IoTeX, this kind of thing.
Sure. I would say something that we have set out from the beginning of our journey is to partner with other projects. We think having a diverse ecosystem is essential to growth. And we have done that in, I guess, the Ethereum ecosystem with other maybe small startup kind of companies. But before we were primarily focused on privacy, and now as we expand into the DePIN space, we wanted to align ourselves with some of the DePIN leaders, and clearly IoTeX is right up there with that. And especially these other young projects that are coming out who haven't even necessarily launched, we have the experience now of being a live token for over a year. Kind of separates us from some of the other projects. So we know what works and what doesn't work in terms of marketing, in terms of community engagement. And we wanted to be able to lend that experience to other projects, have them partner with us, and more importantly, have them build on our network, because our network will only be as strong as the people building on top of us. And that was how we're going to gain not only users, but most importantly, gain value. The more and more projects that are using our network, contributing rewards to our relay operators and bandwidth, and the need for these people to run their relays is going to how this becomes a DePIN powerhouse. And we want to be a DePIN project that is partnered with every other DePIN project and has a use case for every other DePIN project, because privacy is something that everyone wants and needs, even if they don't necessarily know that they're going to be using the network. If it's a simple toggle on-off switch where they can route their traffic through us, we think this is a big use case, and we hope that a lot of other DePIN projects will see that and really help propel us to become a big DePIN player like yourselves.
So, final question for you guys. I want you to imagine 5 years into the future what ATOR looks like in a maximally successful model.
We talk about this one a lot. What's really interesting about that is in 5 years, I hope that our names, Neurotic and Anonymorpho, are just a blip on the story. Kind of how like Satoshi is really nowadays just a blip on the Bitcoin story, because so much has evolved in the course of that time. We want this to be truly decentralized. We want it to be a DAO run, people run, relay run. We don't want to be making the decisions anymore. We want this to be a fully fledged project that holds up to the ideals of crypto: decentralized, diversified, and not run by one single person. You want to have a say on this, you hold your tokens, you have a vote, you put these up to votes, people have governance, and it will be a truly democratized internet experience, something that has never been done before and never been really tried before since the internet's come about. And if we can get the speed up there and worldwide, and you see you're in a cafe in Brazil, you're having pho in Vietnam, and there's a ATOR relay machine or someone's custom coded hardware machine glowing blue, and you know, wow, I'm protected, and the world has been changed.
Yeah, you talk about maximal success. I think to get there, one of the criteria for me is really changing the world's perception on privacy. We have a moniker, a phrase: privacy, not secrecy. It's, as we said, you shouldn't have something to hide to want to desire privacy. You should feel like it's your right, and you should feel like you need to do something if you can see that right being infringed upon. So if we can truly change people's perception around the world, if we can make it seamless and easy for them, then we have this term, flywheel. I think that's how you get real global adoption. That's why you see ATOR machines all around the world, and that's when it's I'd like people to be questioning, why is this not being made private? Why is this not going through a decentralized network? If that becomes the default, if that becomes an expectation around the world, then I know we've really done something to change the world.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time, guys.
Yeah, really appreciate you guys having us.
Thank you.